In this video, I'm going to show you the step-by-step process on how to change the transfer case fluid on a 1967 to 1987 GMC or Chevy pickup just like this. And I'm going to go over a lot of key points that you're going to want to know while you're doing this job, so make sure you watch the entire video so that you don't miss any of those important steps. And if you want to learn how to fix your vehicle, do budget restorations, troubleshoot equipment, and all sorts of other types of garage-related stuff, be sure to subscribe to Midwest Garage so you don't miss anything. Also, I now have shirts, hoodies, and all sorts of cool stuff available for purchase. So if you like what I'm doing on the channel and want to support me, make sure you click the link down in the description and pick one up. So let's start out with what you'll need for this job. You'll need the right type of lubricant, which I'll be going over in just a second. You'll need a fluid pump to make this job that much easier, which I have linked down in the description below so you can pick up your own. They're super cheap and they make the job way easier. You'll need a drain pan, of course, an adjustable wrench, and possibly a 14mm socket and a 14mm wrench. And that's all you need. Alright, so there are 3 different types of lubricant or fluid that could possibly go in your truck, in your transfer case, so let me explain those real quick. If you have a 1967 to a 1980 year model truck, then there were 2 transfer cases available for those years. You either had a full-time 4-wheel drive or a part-time 4-wheel drive truck. Now, the full-time 4-wheel drive trucks were less common, and they used a new Process brand transfer case. They used an NP203, and for those trucks, you actually want to use engine oil inside the transfer case. In the manual, it states to use SAE certified 10W30 or 10W40 motor oil. If you have a 1967 to 1980 year model part-time 4-wheel drive truck, like this one here, then you have a new Process transfer case also. It is an NP205, and what you want to use in that transfer case is an 80 weight 90 gear lube, specifically 80 weight 90 GL5 lubricant. So that's what we're going to be putting in the Work Truck Revival project today. And lastly, if your truck is a 1981 to 1987, then you want to use automatic transmission fluid inside your transfer case. Any Dextron approved ATF will be just fine. So with all of that out of the way, make sure you have the correct type of fluid, and let's get underneath the truck. Alright, so the easiest way to get to your transfer case is probably coming in from the driver's side, and you don't need to lift the truck up or anything to get to it. There's plenty of clearance under here. But coming from the driver's side of the vehicle, up there's the engine, and then your transmission, and then transfer case is right behind that. As you can see, this transfer case is extremely greasy and dirty and nasty, so I'm going to clean it up first before changing the fluid so that you can kind of see what I'm doing a little bit better. But before we do that, we're going to remove this little skid plate here, and that's where you'll use your 14mm wrench and socket to remove the 4 bolts that hold that skid plate on. And if you don't have a skid plate, then don't worry about it, and we'll move on to the next step. I should mention that you definitely want to use eye protection while you're doing this, because there's a lot of dirt and grease and nasty stuff that's going to be trying to get in your eyes while you're fiddling around down here. And we'll definitely clean this up. It's a lot of years of caked on gunk and gear lube and dirt. Cool. And this project's already making us money. Found a couple pennies up there. And now with our skid plate out of the way, we have much easier access to the drain plug, which is right there, and the fill plug, which is up there. So first, I'm going to clean this up a little bit with some brake cleaner so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. So it's not perfectly clean, but that's okay. You can at least see what I'm doing now. You can see our casting numbers, you can see that it's a new process, and you can clearly see our fill plug and our drain plug. Now, a lot of people might be saying that I shouldn't have cleaned it because now it's gonna leak, but it wouldn't have gotten this way if it wasn't leaking in the first place, so I'm not too worried about it. Now, the first thing you wanna do before you drain the gear lube out of this thing is you wanna loosen up your fill plug, because if you drain all the fluid out and then turns out that you can't get any fluid back into it, then you just immobilized your truck. So we're gonna start with cracking loose the fill plug. So we'll grab our adjustable wrench and just crack this loose. And that came out just fine. So we'll set that aside and go ahead and drain the fluid. So we'll just loosen this up. Then we'll get our drain pan underneath and let it all drain out. And you want to keep track of which plug is the fill and which one is the drain, because the drain should have a magnet on it. And as you can see, this is a little bit heavier of a gear lube, and that's because it's the 80 weight 90. And yeah, the fluid doesn't look too bad. But as I've said before, how many people do you really know that change their transfer case fluid regularly? Looks like this guy probably did, that I bought this truck from, but it's better safe than sorry. So we'll let this drain out completely, and we'll get our fluid pump onto our bottle of gear lube. So this is our fill plug, and usually there's a magnet on the end of this, and you'll see that it's a little bit dirty on the end of this magnet. And what that is very, very fine metal shavings. And that's perfectly okay to find. That's why the magnet's there, is so that it collects the metal shavings and they don't end up circulating throughout the transfer case. So we'll clean this up real nice before installing it. One important thing that I forgot to mention earlier in the video is that you have to change your transfer case fluid in these trucks every 30,000 miles. And if you want, you can drive the vehicle around for about 15 minutes in four-wheel drive to warm up the fluid so that it drains faster, but I have nothing but time, so I'll just let it drain nice and slow. And also, you'll see that a lot of the times you'll have a different type of fluid in your transfer pump from the last time you used it. So usually what I like to do is, once I install it in my new fluid, I usually take a rag and just give it a few pumps to purge the old fluid out, because you'll see that it's still that Auto Track 2 in there. And I'll just kind of pump this out until I have nothing but gear lube coming out. And then that means that I'm putting the correct type of fluid into my transfer case. So usually I'll purge it every time I use it for a new type of fluid. Once your old fluid is done draining out, go ahead and install your drain plug. And you want to tighten this to 32 foot-pounds. I'm not too much of a torque nerd when it comes to drain plugs, so I'll just tighten it to German torque specs and put it right there, which is about good and tight. Next, take your gear lube and fill up the transfer case until it comes out of the fill hole. All right, so we got her full. So we'll pull this out. And then we'll install our fill plug to 32 foot-pounds as well. And you don't need to use any type of thread sealant or anything like that on this. We'll just get her to 32 foot-pounds. All right, and on to the next step. So our NP205 transfer case took right around 2.5 quarts of gear lube. Now, before you go ahead and put your skid plate back on, you want to start the truck up, drive it around in 4-wheel drive for 15-20 minutes or so, and then recheck the level. In some cases, you might have to add a little bit more. And also at that time is when you're going to want to check for leaks and make sure everything's good to go and working properly inside the transfer case when you go from 2 high to 4 high to 4 low, stuff like that. If all of that is good to go, then go ahead and put your skid plate back on the truck. If you guys like this and it was informative and helped you out, please let me know down in the comments below. Also consider subscribing to Midwest Garage. I have a lot of new videos coming out with this project. This is our work truck revival project. We're going to be doing pretty much a full budget restoration, including interior, bodywork, rust repair, paint, so on and so forth. I also have a lot of other how-to videos on the channel, so be sure to check them out, as well as the videos that pop up around here. I'm sure I have something on the channel that you'll really enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.